Me and my dad kept mocking my husband until he got fed up, stood up and did this.
My dad mocked my husband continuously, and I joined in to laugh at his joke, but my husband didn't see it as a joke, and now he has made a bold step that may potentially ruin my life. Was I wrong for laughing at my husband after my dad mocked him? Okay, Reddit, I am very bad, and I hope that someone on here has a solution to my problems. I do not like the fact that I am in the middle of this, so I am desperate to get out of this situation. My marriage, future, and financial status all depends on the outcome of this problem. My name is Cassie, and I'm a 31-year-old tailor or fashion designer. Any way you put it, I am involved in the fashion industry, but I mostly make clothes on a local level. I'm married, as you may have seen from the intro. The name of my husband is Jeffrey, and he is 35 years old. Jeffrey and I have been married for about 6 years now. I need the help of someone and anyone right now because I do not know what to do. I don't know if I made a mistake by laughing at my own father's joke. That even sounds ridiculous. I mean, is it wrong for me to laugh at my dad's joke? The answer is no, if you ask me. To be honest, it is no news to anyone that my dad and husband do not get along. In fact, my dad has never really liked Jeffrey, and he has always made that obvious, even though he didn't voice it out. But I actually do not blame my dad for not liking my husband at all. Yes, I do not blame my dad. Everyone has preferences, and he is not an exception. Jeffrey has always tried to make a big deal out of his rocky relationship with my dad, but I have always tried to make him understand that he is just overreacting. The truth is, their relationship hasn't always been so rocky from the beginning. It was never perfect, but it definitely wasn't as bad as it is now. So the truth is that before Jeffrey and I got married, I had a lot of people who were interested in getting married to me. Some of them made it known to my dad, and some of them only told me about their intentions. My dad and I are very close because he's literally the only parent I have alive. He's like my best friend, and I tell him everything. I won't say I am materialistic, but I am definitely high maintenance, and even my dad knows that. He had catered for me all my life before I got married to Jeffrey, and he handed over the responsibility to him. Even before I got to college, I always made it known to my dad that I just had to marry a rich man. Going to suffer or build things from scratch with any man was never in my plans. My dad was very aware of my intentions to marry up, and he was very much in support of it. That's why he always did a background check on all potential husbands back then to make sure I wasn't going to suffer with any man. I have always prioritized my financial status, and so I made that clear to all the guys I was in contact with. I'm not trying to say I was dating several men at the same time. I was in contact with several men. There's a difference. I didn't want to get into marriage without having options and knowing the one that was right for me. I mean, how else would I know the best man out of all of them? Jeffrey was never at the top of the list. In fact, he was literally at the bottom, but he had no idea about it. He had no idea that I even had a list. I made all the guys believe that they were the only ones I was in contact with. Nobody has a right to judge me because there's nothing new about what I did. Guys do it all the time, so I do not see anything wrong with doing the same thing. So like I said earlier, Jeffrey was never at the top of the list. That was because out of all the guys I was in contact with, he was the one who held back with the gifts. In other words, he acted too smart. I knew he had enough money to spoil me every day if he wanted, but he wasn't putting in enough effort, so I gave up and decided not to waste my time with him. He preferred to take things slow and get to know me better. For me, that was just proof that he had no idea there was a long list. When I told my dad about Jeffrey, we ruled him out of the list because he wasn't the idle man I wanted. But life and karma has a way of dealing with us when we least expect it. It's still surprising to me even till this day that I got married to Jeffrey. I never planned it, but here's what happened. Most of the guys I was in contact with eventually broke up with me and tagged me as too demanding or too slow. Too slow in the sense that I was always unavailable and wasn't giving them a clear picture of us having a future together. Well, it's not easy to give attention to dozens of guys at once, so I didn't bother. But unfortunately for me, I was left with only 2 guys. I already knew Dave would be my choice. Dave and I were dating, and he was financially stable and nice enough to spoil me. He gave me whatever I wanted without complaining or tagging me as a nag. The fact that he was ready to spoil me without any questions made him my first choice. But one day, what I discovered suddenly made Save the last man I wanted to marry. We had booked a hotel for a couple of days so we could chill together before he traveled. Before we even booked the hotel, I had noticed that Dave was acting unlike himself. He was always making secret phone calls and checking his phone. I could also see that he was restless, and the way he spent on me was reduced. In fact, the day we booked the hotel, we had to use my card, and it wasn't even a 5-star hotel. Dave had never been the kind of person to care about the prices of things, or the kind of person to ask me to volunteer my personal money, so even without being told, I knew something had to be wrong. His weird body language only made me more curious and anxious. Oh my God, you guys will not believe how my life literally turned upside down that day. I waited for Dave to go take a shower the night before I invaded his phone. I already knew his password, so it wasn't hard for me at all. The first thing I did was to go check his finances, like the debit alerts and just the necessary information. What I saw there was completely horrifying, and I almost shouted. His finances were a complete mess, and I could tell that he had gone broke. His email was even worse. He had taken a lot of loans, and before anyone blames me, I'd like to mention that he was already in debt even before meeting me. The dates I saw were all the proof I needed. Also, from some of the apps he had on his phone, I discovered that he was actually a gambling addict. I could just tell that he didn't know how to save money at all, and that's why it was easy for him to own and buy luxurious stuff. For him to have suddenly become restless, I figured out that he had probably made a wrong bet, and that's why his mood had been foul. I knew there was still a possibility of him making more money from gambling, but I was certain that wouldn't be able to last a long time. I needed to secure my future and go for a man that had stability, even though I had to give up on the one that was ready to spend all the time on me. Jeffrey was the only guy that was actually ready for marriage and had money to a certain extent, so I didn't want to miss the opportunity. I was also certain that he was smart with his finances and wasn't into gambling of any kind. As a result of all these points, I told myself that I had no choice but to rule my favorite, Dave, out. Well, the moment I realized Dave was in debt, he was no longer my favorite. It was hard to break up with him, but I had no choice than to do it. In fact, I had to ghost him because he was just not ready to give up without getting a proper reason. And there was no way I was going to tell him that the only reason I was breaking up with him was because he had no money and was in debt. So I blocked him and decided to focus on Jeffrey. It was hard because Jeffrey seemed to have moved on with his life. When I told my dad I was going to marry Jeffrey, he was really disappointed. He felt like Jeffrey was stingy and was trying to play smart. But I had to make him understand that Jeffrey was the only option I had. My dad was prideful, and he had been on top of the world when he discovered that I had many options. So it was quite a letdown for him to realize that there were no longer options, and I was practically settling for the only guy left. That seemed to increase his dislike for Jeffrey at that point. After months of talking and making sure I wasn't playing smart with him, Jeffrey finally proposed. My dad made a personal list of luxury items we needed for the wedding. Jeffrey rejected half of the things written on the list. That really made my dad angry. He couldn't believe that Jeffrey wasn't ready to cover the expenses of all the things he wrote. According to him, Jeffrey was marrying his only daughter, and he had to be able to spend as much as possible. Jeffrey explained that most items on the list were unnecessary, and he wasn't ready to waste money just to impress strangers. It wasn't a small case at all, and the wedding nearly got canceled. My dad wasn't ready to back down, and Jeffrey also wasn't ready to back down. I had to intervene and cover the costs secretly just so peace could reign. On Jeffrey's end, he thought my dad was the one who covered the cost, and on my dad's end, he thought Jeffrey coveted the cost. I left it that way because I was eager to get married, and I was tired of the back and forth. After the wedding, I thought they would forget everything and move on, but it seemed like that wasn't going to happen either. There were a lot of indirect verbal attacks from my dad, and even though Jeffrey tried to endure it, it was almost impossible. But that hasn't been the only part of my marriage with Jeffrey that has gone downhill. The truth is just that his relationship with my dad has played a huge part in it. I just felt like Jeffrey doesn't prioritize my needs as much as I expected him to. He wasn't my first choice, so maybe that's why we continued to disagree even after marriage. I honestly never understood why that was ever the case in the first place. I just tried my best in the marriage, but I still can't get over the fact that Jeffrey isn't exactly the man I wanted to actually marry. Right now, the recent events are making me doubt myself, and Jeffrey has made me out to be a bad person. During our 6 years of marriage, even though I knew the hard process I went through before settling down with him, I have always tried my best to make things work. So I don't understand why a single mistake is making Jeffy do things I just find completely annoying. Now I know everything seems messed up, so I'm going to try and break it down in the shortest way possible. So just 5 days ago, something completely unexpected happened. One of my close friends was hosting a dinner party, and her mom also happens to be very close to my dad, so my dad was also invited. Jeffrey also knows my friend, so it was not surprising that he got an invitation too. To be honest, the preparation for the dinner party was almost as annoying as the events that took place. I don't just get why it is so hard for my own husband to spend substantial money on me. He gave me just $500 to shop for a dress for this party. How is that supposed to be enough? I had to do other things like hair and makeup and even get my nails done. I don't know what Jeffrey is saving up for if he can't just use the money on his wife. Things like these are what make women's breasts. We don't just wake up in the morning and start cheating without a valid reason. Jeffrey has no idea how many guys wanted to marry me. I think if he had an idea, he wouldn't just try to throw his chance away. Every single day I keep asking myself, why didn't I just go for Dave? Because I know Dave would never hesitate to spend it on me. This item was a dinner party where I was aware that all our friends would be in attendance. I wanted to stand out, and I expected Jeffrey to understand that. But no, he gave me $500 and thought that was a huge sum of money. I still remember the conversation we had that day, and he wasn't ready to accept what I was saying. After he sent me the money, I had to complain. This is not up to the amount I budgeted. $500 is barely enough for all the things I want to do. I expected Jeffrey to understand things from my point of view and add to the money, but instead, he decided to banter words with me. I know, but $500 is all I can spare for now. You're aware that the rent has gone up and my workplace has been acting a little off. There are rumors that they will be dismissing people randomly, and so we have to cut down expenses. I don't want to spend recklessly now and then, have to struggle for money if I'm among the people dismissed. And that's what he said to me. Until this moment, I still can't believe it. I cannot believe that the man I married thinks spending on me is reckless. It doesn't even make sense. Why does he have to keep talking about a future that isn't even here yet? He might get sacked, so what? Is that a good reason why I should appear like I am suffering in front of my friends? I couldn't accept his reasoning, and I had to let him know that I just wasn't having it. It's just a one-night event that you have to co-air for. Why do you always have to do this? It's either one excuse or another. You never seem to give me the exact amount I asked for. That's why I told my fellow Redditors. And please, no one should judge me or make it seem like I was wrong for making that statement. I'm his wife, and I have every right to complain if I feel like I am not being treated fairly. I don't see anything wrong with what I said, but his reply definitely caught me off guard. I never give you the exact amount you ask for because what you ask for is always too much. You always seem to think money falls on trees. If I do not save up enough so I can keep this house running, you're still the same person that would complain? It's just a one-night event, and that's exactly the same reason why we do not need to break the bank. You do not assist with the finances, and I never complain, so don't make it look like I never give you money. I give you money all the time, but you always think it is never enough. Can you guys believe that statement? That is what my own husband said to me. Why did he have to mention the fact that I do not help with the finances? What is that even supposed to mean? I have noticed that any time I try to call him out for the way he hardly spends on me, he tries to turn everything around and make me look like a bad person. That day, I was so upset that I left the house and went to see my dad. I just needed to vent, and he was the only person that could understand my issues with Jeffrey. My dad wasn't happy at all when he learned that Jeffrey wasn't giving me the amount of money I asked for. The fact that Jeffrey and my dad weren't even close to begin with made everything worse. Every time I spoke to my dad about Jeffrey, his irritation for him would always grow. That was just evidence of the number of times I had complained about my husband to my dad. I even had a friend that tried to stop me from going to speak to my dad about Jeffrey. She claimed that I was being immature and trying to cause a rift between them. How is that even the case? Am I expected to stop speaking to my own father just because I don't want him to have a problem with my husband? Well, It is not my fault that Jeffrey always gives me something to talk about. I stopped talking to her entirely because I believed she wanted to get into my head. Even my dad accepted my decision to cut her off. Well, that's just by the way. I'll get back into what I was saying now. So the fact that my dad was already upset with Jeffrey even before the dinner party didn't surprise me when he mocked him. But I thought Jeffy was going to be a man and take the home with a pinch of salt. That wasn't even the case, ladies and gentlemen. That day, after venting to my dad, I came home and it was quite late. I left my dad's place early, but I got an unexpected phone call. Yes, an unexpected phone call from someone unexpected. It was Dave, my ex-boyfriend. He had always used unknown numbers to call me a few months after breaking up with him, but he stopped. I never got a call from him after marriage, and even though I thought about him almost every day, it wasn't a case where I got repeated calls from him. So when he called that day, I was shocked and surprised. He told me he was in town and wanted to see me. I don't know what got into me that day, but I agreed immediately. I don't know if it was the fact that I was upset with Jeffrey, or the argument we had that made me angry, or even the fact that my dad was angry at him. I don't know what it was, but it definitely led me to say yes to seeing David. We met at a restaurant, not a hotel. He initially wanted us to meet at a hotel, but I refused. The PTSD from the last time I was made to pay for our room was still fresh in my mind. I was shocked to see that Dave had practically upgraded. He looked like he was living fine and had no problems in his life. We talked for some time, and thankfully he didn't ask why I ghosted him. In fact, he didn't bring up anything related to our breakup. That was actually refreshing for me, and I also liked the fact that he paid for the restaurant bill. At that moment, the feeling of regret started to come again. I felt like I made a very big mistake by breaking up with Dave. I thought he'd be in debt and wouldn't be as financially stable as he was before. But seeing him that day just proved that I was absolutely wrong. When we finished from the restaurant, he made sure I unblocked him before we said goodbye. I didn't feel any guilt at all when I made my way back to the house. After all, I knew I didn't do anything with Dave. We just had dinner and spoke like longtime friends. None of us even brought up the topic of our failed relationship. Jeffrey was already asleep when I got back, so I wasn't questioned that night. He left for work before I woke up, so we didn't get to talk and settle things. That should explain the fact that there was still tension brewing between us, and we didn't have time to squash things before going for the dinner party 4 days later. Dave had sent me some money 2 days after we met, so unused that money to get the expensive stuff I wanted. I no longer had to worry what I would get with the little $500 Jeffrey gave me. I got my hair and nails done, and then I was ready for the dinner party. I just had absolutely no idea that I was getting ready for one of the worst nights of my life. I mean, words can't even explain how absolutely annoying that night was. After all the money I spent on preparing for the dinner, my dad and Jeffrey just had to make a mockery of me. I thought I would be chilling after the dinner, but here I am, days later, writing about what a horrible mess I am in. After we exchanged pleasantries, ate till our fill, and had a little time to cool off, they decided to play a round table game where everyone got to come, talk, and just have fun. I had actually been looking forward to that party of the night because I expected light moods. That wasn't the case at the end of the day, though. My dad brought up a joke about how some husbands were deadbeat and got married, even though they weren't capable of taking proper care of their wives. The joke would have gone over everyone's heads, and no one would have understood who he was referring to if he did not look Jeffrey right in the eye and make more jokes after that one. He went as far as asking Jeffrey if he was broke and telling him that he could always meet up with him so he could loan him money. He also asked Jeffrey why he got married when he knew fully well that he had no money to sustain a woman in the way she wanted. My dad went on and on with each joke. It was awkward, but at some point I laughed at one of his jokes because it was funny. That seemed to have triggered Jeffrey because he stood up immediately and left. Everyone got quiet after that, and there was just this awkward silence that was absolutely embarrassing. I didn't know what to do, and I had no idea how I was supposed to salvage the situation. No one wanted to break the silence, and that's what was eating me up. I never imagined that I would be the one who would ridicule herself at the dinner. At that moment, I knew that after we left the place, my marriage would be the topic of discussion. It made me really uncomfortable, and I wanted the ground to open so I could enter. To my surprise, over 30 minutes after leaving, Jeffrey came back with divorce papers in his hands. Yes, I'm not lying or joking. He actually came back with divorce papers, and then he said, I thought you would change your ways or speak sense into your dad, but you have chosen to stay single all your life. You're a liability to me, and there's nothing you contribute to my life. I got this paper weeks ago, but I thought you had turned a new leaf. I cannot continue to waste my time and money on you. Your dad should find you the rich simp he's looking for. I have respected him enough. You both are pathetic gold diggers looking for a man that would get you out of your current financial position. I refuse to be the one to work while you and your dad enjoy, yet you still dare mock me. After he was done with what he was saying, he left me there. He actually left me there. I couldn't even believe my ears. At first, it all felt like a bad dream to me. I couldn't believe that Jeffrey had filed for divorce already without me knowing about it. The fact that he even had to go home, get the papers, then embarrass me in front of everyone was absolutely cruel. I felt too embarrassed to even move. I couldn't believe that Jeffrey would ever do me dirty in such a way. I was beyond shocked to say the least because I never expected any part of what happened. I didn't even think he would try defending himself by talking back to my dad. The worst part had to be the embarrassment and the way he aired our dirty laundry out in public. Why did he have to give me the papers in front of everyone? Why didn't he pull me to the side so we could talk? It still doesn't make sense to me at all. Everything he did that day just showed how immature he was. The fact that he wanted to make a statement by doing that when everyone was there is beyond wicked and evil. It still gives me chills each time I think about all that he has done. I was living with a man that had been considering divorce, yet I had no idea about it. Apart from just thinking about it, he went ahead and got the papers ready, waiting for me to mess up so he could validate his decision. Isn't that just another level of being a wicked human being? Guys, I am still in shock and I do not know what to do. I am going through the worst phase of my life right now. The embarrassment is just too much for me. I can't even go out in public right now. I know everyone is talking about what happened. My friends must be discussing the incident secretly. I couldn't even go back home to face Jeffrey because I am totally disappointed in him. His actions just show how immature he is. I am currently staying with my dad, and he is trying his best to let me know that I dodged a huge bullet with Jeffrey. He had told me not to worry about it and that Jeffrey would soon change his mind. Well, I hope so, because I do not have any plans to be a divorced woman so soon. The only way Jeffrey and I are getting divorced is if I file for the divorce. He is not going to embarrass me like this. I'm going to make him regret his decision. Who does he even think he is, and why is he trying to ruin my life? He has no idea that I am in contact with my ex-boyfriend. He has no idea that there is someone ready to get me if he loses me. I don't know why this is even bothering me so much. I'm just thankful Dave is back. At least I would have a backup if Jeffrey tried to play smart. I just do not want to get divorced. Not now, at least. With no children to tie me to Jeffrey, what would I do with my life? I should move back in with my dad after 6 years of marriage with nothing to show for it? That would basically be the biggest embarrassment ever. I don't know how it's going to happen, but I need help. Please, anyone who has been through something similar should try and help me because I really need it and I don't know what to do. That's why I came here. I need advice and I need it fast. I don't want this kind of sad ending and embarrassment. Please help me. Update. Hello everyone, the troubled wife is back again. It's been 6 months of absolute hell, but I don't want to start this update on the wrong foot. Even though that's not what I want, you guys have made it impossible for me to start positively. The amount of backlash I have received is just insane. I do not understand how this post blew up and how I have been tagged a gold digger or damaged goods. I feel like the comments just have no business being so mean and demeaning. I came here for advice and not to be attacked. I do not think I deserve any of the backlash I am getting, and I'm going to make that clear. I'm already going through hell in my real life. Why do you all have to make Reddit even worse for me? Yes, I messed up. I can see that now. But the way you all are moving me is not the right way to make me see my mistakes. I even regret bringing this to the public, but I have no choice than to finish what I started now. I have tried my best to delay this update for as long as I can, but I think it's high time I update you all now. So, at some point, I finally built up the courage to go speak to Jeffrey at the house. My dad warned me not to go, but I just wanted to do it, and I didn't listen to him. I wanted to listen to the people in the comments that advised me to leave my dad out of my marital life and take charge. Well, I guess I realized that a little too late because Jeffrey refused to listen to me. I tried my best to send my point across, but he had already made up his mind that he could not continue the marriage. He claimed that my actions for the past 6 years have proved that I don't have any respect for him or the marriage, and that each day of his life with me, he has had to walk on eggshells around me and my dad. He told me he was done with the marriage. According to him, if I was being so grumpy, even after he tried to provide for me, he was sure I would do even worse if he somehow got broke. He told me he didn't want a woman whose love for him was dependent on the amount of money he could provide each day. I tried to tell him I would change, but he wasn't ready to listen. I got upset and decided to leave. I even signed the divorce papers before leaving. I went to meet Dave that sake, and out of my raging emotions, one thing led to the other, and we slept together. I did it because I was angry with Jeffrey, but it didn't mean anything. I also thought that it hurt getting intimate with Dave. He would date me again, and we could get married. I wanted a backup plan because I didn't want to be left stranded without any option. I had already concluded in my head that Dave was going to marry me. That was the only option I saw. Safe, and I went out constantly after that, and one day I decided to ask him if we were already back to dating. To my surprise, Dave told me there was nothing serious going on between us, and that we were just having fun. I was very surprised to hear that from him. I had never told him I was married, but somehow he got to know after we broke up that I got married immediately. He reminded me of that and told me he had a fiancée and was about to get married. He wasn't even living in town and just came to have a bachelor's holiday before he got married. I was just his plaything before he settled down. He accused me of being cheap and told me that he couldn't even believe that I still slept with him despite being married. He called me cheap and deceitful and told me he would never forgive me for ghosting him for over 6 years. I cried my eyes out trying to beg him, but he told me he would be a fool to leave his fiancée for the same woman that gave him sleepless nights. According to him, he didn't care why I left him, but all he knew was that I left him when he needed me the most, and when he was struggling to survive. His words really got to me, but all my pleading went to waste. Dave told me that the only reason he chose to reconnect with me was because he wanted a woman that would block him after he was done and never look back, and that I was good at doing that. Stop crying and just block me like you did years ago. After all, you're good at ghosting. That was all he said before leaving me to cry my eyes out. I couldn't even believe that I was left stranded. That was one of my biggest fears, and I couldn't even stop it. I couldn't believe that Dave used me just so he could go enjoy his life. By that time, the divorce proceeding in court had already started, and he was my only option for a good future. But nothing worked, and I was left stranded in the desert, literally. I tried to change Jeffrey's mind, but he refused to be influenced by me. I gave up on him and accepted my fate. Our divorce is still ongoing right now, and I have accepted that there's no way out of it. I tried calling Dave again, but he blocked me. He actually blocked me and went on with his life. I'm currently depressed, and my dad isn't helping matters. He wants me to bring another rich husband because he can't handle the burden of having me around. My life has been a living hell for the past 6 months, and I don't know what to do. I don't know the next steps to take, and I'm currently just stuck in my dad's house. I regret all my actions so badly, but there's nothing I can do to fix my mistakes. Hey, Reddit, this is my first time posting here, and I had to create an account just to get this off my chest. Honestly, I never thought I'd be one of those people pouring out their life to a bunch of strangers on the internet, but here I am. I usually watch those Reddit videos on TikTok with the Minecraft background or see them pop up on YouTube, and I've heard that Reddit can be a helpful place where you can get advice and opinions without anyone knowing who you are. So I guess that's why I'm here. I'm in a really messed up situation right now, and I don't know where else to turn. To say I'm in a bind is an understatement. I'm ashamed, scared, and confused all at once. I got really, really drunk a few nights ago, and I ended up going home with a stranger. It was a complete accident. I wasn't thinking straight, and now I don't know what to do. The guilt is eating me alive, and I can't even look my husband in the eyes without feeling like I'm going to throw up. My name is Kate, and I'm 32 years old. My husband, Mike, is also 32. We've been married for about 4 years now, and up until this point, things have been great between us. Really great, actually. We've always had a strong relationship. Our communication has always been solid, and we've managed to keep the spark alive, even after a few years of marriage. Our sex life, it's been really active. We still get excited about each other, and we make time for regular date nights even though we both work full-time. Speaking of work, we both have pretty decent jobs, though Mike earns more than I do, which has never been an issue. He's supportive, never makes me feel less than, and he goes out of his way to make me feel special. Mike is the kind of husband that a lot of people dream about. He's romantic, thoughtful, and always takes the time to show me how much he loves me. There's never been a lack of affection or attention from him. He surprises me with flowers, plans little getaways, and even remembers the small details like my favorite dessert or the book I've been wanting to read. It's not just the big gestures, it's the everyday stuff too. He's the type who will text me randomly during the day just to say he loves me or ask how my day is going. We talk about everything. Our future, our dreams, our fears. We've always been open with each other, and I thought we were completely in sync. Honestly, before all of this happened, I would have told anyone that our marriage was perfect. But now I feel like I've completely ruined everything. I don't even know how to process it all. This isn't me. I'm not the kind of person who cheats. I never imagined myself in a situation like this. But one night of drinking too much, one careless decision, and now my entire life feels like it's hanging by a thread. I keep going over it in my head, trying to figure out how things went so wrong. To be completely honest on here, which is actually kind of refreshing, I've always struggled with alcoholism, or rather, I used to struggle with alcoholism. But that was before Mike and I got married. It almost destroyed our relationship back then, and when I think about it now, I realize just how close we were to completely falling apart. There were times when we were on the verge of breaking up, all because of my drinking. It wasn't just the drinking itself, it was the lies, the mood swings, the inconsistency. I would promise to cut back, to control myself, but every time I'd fail. And Mike was always patient, always understanding until he wasn't. The real wake-up call came when he left me for a few weeks. He was done. I could feel it in the way he looked at me before he walked out that door. It wasn't one of those dramatic movie-style breakups. It was calm, almost resigned, which somehow made it even worse. I remember just sitting there afterward, staring at the door, knowing it was my fault, and yet, at the same time, feeling too numb to react. Those few weeks were hell for me. I hit rock bottom. The guilt, the shame, the loneliness, it all came crashing down on me, and I had no idea how to pick up the pieces. That was when I realized I had a choice to make. Either I get myself together or I lose him forever. So I reached out to him. I begged him to give us another chance, to give me another chance. I promised him that I would fix my life. I swore that I would change and that I would do whatever it took to make it right. And because we truly loved each other, because we had a foundation that was worth saving, he agreed. He gave me that chance, and I made sure to never take it for granted. That's when I really started to put in the work. I found a local AA meeting and started going regularly. I worked with a sponsor, and I threw myself into every step of the recovery process. I knew I had to face the reality of my addiction head on, no more hiding or downplaying it. I stopped drinking completely, cold turkey. It wasn't easy at first, but I was committed. Mike supported me through it all, which is something I'll always be grateful for. He didn't judge me for my past mistakes. Instead, he encouraged me to focus on my progress. With his help and the support of my AA group, I managed to get sober and stay that way. I cut off alcohol completely. It wasn't good for me anyway. I never had a high tolerance for it, and whenever I drank, things just spiraled out of control. Looking back, I don't even know why I got involved with alcohol in the first place. Maybe it was stress, maybe it was peer pressure, or maybe I was just looking for a way to escape. Either way, I knew alcohol wasn't something I could handle, so I stayed sober, for years until now. A few days back, my friends invited me out for a girls' night out. These were really close friends of mine, and it had been a while since we'd all hung out together. Life had just gotten busy for all of us. Work, family, responsibilities, you know how it is. We hadn't caught up in weeks, and we all agreed we needed a break to unwind and enjoy ourselves like old times. I was excited about it. Usually, I stick to non-alcoholic drinks when we go out, and this time was no different, at least at the start. I told my husband about the planned hangout, and he was fine with it. He didn't have any plans for us that night, so he was happy for me. We'd been so caught up in our own busy lives, so he understood that I needed this time. It was supposed to be just a fun, relaxing night. We headed off to this bar we'd been to a few times before. It was perfect because they served both alcoholic and non-alcoholic drinks, and I felt safe there. I started the night off with my usual non-alcoholic choices, and the first hour or so was great. We were just catching up, laughing, and having a good time. But then, things took a turn when my friends started encouraging me to have just one drink. They were all telling me that it had been years since I'd had any alcohol and asking if I didn't miss it. Honestly, I did miss it. I missed feeling like I could let loose without a care in the world. But I had been sober for a reason. Alcohol was a problem for me. Still, my friends were persistent. They told me it was fine, that I could handle one drink, that going sober didn't mean I could never drink again, just that I should be able to control it. They made it sound so harmless, like one drink would be no big deal. I don't even know why I listened, but I did. I caved. One drink turned into two turned into three, and before I knew it, I wasn't counting anymore. I was completely hammered. I vaguely remember seeing a cute stranger walking by, and that's when things got really blurry. My friends were egging me on, and I started flirting with him. I don't even know how it happened, but next thing I knew, I was leaving the bar with this stranger. Everything was foggy, but somehow, I ended up going home with him. We slept together. I woke up the next morning in his bed, hungover and horrified, with no clear memory of the night before. I grabbed my things, snuck out of his apartment, and rushed home. What the hell had I done? How could I have been so reckless? I didn't just get drunk. I cheated on my husband. The man who had stood by me through everything, who had trusted me enough to let me go out with my friends without even a second thought. I was disgusted with myself. When I got home, I fully expected Mike to be furious. I thought he would have noticed I was missing all night and would be waiting for me, ready to confront me. But thankfully, my friends had covered for me. When Mike couldn't reach me after several calls, he had gotten worried and called them. They told him I was passed out at one of their houses after drinking too much. They lied to protect me. When I walked in, Mike wasn't angry. He was just disappointed that I'd gotten drunk again. He wasn't even mad that I stayed out all night. He was just worried. I apologized to him and told him that it would be the last time, blaming my friends for pressuring me into drinking. He believed me. We talked it over, and for the moment, things seemed to blow over. But the guilt has been eating me alive ever since. I haven't told anyone about what really happened, well, except my friend. They think it was just harmless fun and a slight mistake I made because I was drunk, that it didn't count. But I know better. It did count, and I can't undo it. I feel like the worst person on earth. My husband doesn't deserve this, and I don't know what to do. Should I tell him? Should I confess? Or should I just bury this secret and hope it never comes out? The guilt is suffocating me, and every time I look at Mike, I feel like I'm lying to him. I don't know how to fix this, and the more time passes, the more I feel like I'm going to implode from the weight of this secret. Update. Hey Reddit, it's me again. First off, I just want to thank you all for the suggestions, tips, and advice you gave me after my last post. Some of you really took the time to give thoughtful and helpful feedback, and I appreciate that. But I'll be honest, I also got slammed pretty hard. I knew I would, but it was overwhelming to see some of the hate. I got called out by a lot of people, especially incels, telling me that I had lost a good one, that I need to fess up, and that I'm the worst for not telling my husband the truth immediately. I get it, okay? I understand why people are saying that, but I don't think you all understand the full extent of the situation I'm in. I am terrified. I'm not making excuses, but I feel stuck. I know my husband, Mike. He's a really good person. He's kind, thoughtful, and forgiving, but the one thing he absolutely does not tolerate is cheating and lies. You see, Mike's last relationship before he met me ended because his ex cheated on him. It messed him up pretty badly. It was hard for him to open up and trust again when we first started dating. Cheating is one of his biggest fears, and if he finds out that I did exactly what his ex did, it will break him. I know it will. And honestly, he will leave me. No second chances, no working through it. He'll be out the door. I can't bear to think about that. A lot of you suggested that I should go to the hospital to get tested for STDs, and you're right. I need to take responsibility for what happened, at least with regard to my health. I don't think the stranger used protection. I honestly don't remember, which makes it even worse. So, yeah, I'm planning to get tested, and until I get the results, I haven't been intimate with Mike. I'm not stupid. If there's a chance I have something, I wouldn't want to give it to him, but I don't know how to face him, or if I even can. The guilt is consuming me, and I feel like every day I don't say anything is another nail in the coffin of our marriage. But the truth is, I'm just not ready to lose everything. I know that makes me selfish, but I don't know what else to do. Update. Hey Reddit, it's me again. I actually wanted to update you all a while ago, but things have just exploded, and I haven't had a moment to sit down and process everything, let alone make an update post. Plus, to be honest, I've been feeling pretty ashamed and scared because I know the I told you so's are coming. But here it goes. First off, I went to the hospital and got tested. And yeah, I have an STD. Thankfully, it's nothing major, just something minor that can be cleared up with meds. I've already started the treatment, so physically I'll be fine. But emotionally, that's a whole other story. So second of all, my husband found out. Not in some subtle way either. It was like my world came crashing down in the most brutal way possible. I genuinely thought my friends were covering for me. They had told me everything was fine, that they'd protect me, and I trusted them. I thought they'd keep the secret, you know? But apparently that's not how it played out. One of them told my husband everything, the flirting, going home with that guy, all of it. And the worst part? I didn't even realize they had spilled the beans until I came home from work one day, and my husband was just standing there waiting. He was furious. He didn't just find out from my so-called friend. He also searched the house and found the STD medication I'd hidden. At that point, it was all the proof he needed. I didn't even have a chance to lie my way out of it. He confronted me, and everything came pouring out. I can't even begin to describe how angry he was. We had this huge argument, probably the worst fight we've ever had. I was crying, begging him to understand that it was a mistake, that I hadn't meant for any of this to happen, but he didn't want to hear any of it. In the end, he told me to pack my things and leave. So, yeah, here I am, staying at my best friend's place for the time being. She's been supportive, but she's furious too, furious at our other friends who knew and didn't have my back. For now, I've cut contact with them. I can't even stand the thought of talking to them. They're siding with the one friend who told my husband, saying he deserved to know because he's a good guy, and that they felt like I wasn't being honest with myself or him. Seriously, what the actual hell? I thought friends were supposed to have your back, not stab you in it. Now, on top of all this, my work performance has tanked. I'm a mess, and I'm sure my boss has noticed. I can barely focus on anything, and it feels like my whole life is just spiraling out of control. In just a few days, everything I've known has blown up. My husband hasn't told our mutual friends or families yet, but when he does, I know the judgment and shame are going to rain down even harder. I'm dreading that moment. It feels like my world is crumbling, and there's nothing I can do to stop it. Update. Hey Reddit, it's me again. Seems like you all love reveling in my misery, huh? I mean, I get it, I brought this on myself, but it's still hard to put it all out there. You all kept asking for an update, so here it is. Not that there's much to update, really. First off, my work performance? Yeah, it's been going downhill fast. Like, I can barely focus, and it's starting to show. My boss noticed, too. He pulled me into his office a few days ago and said something along the lines of, "If you need some time off, we can arrange that." I mean, nice, right? But then he followed it up with, "It'll be unpaid, though." And, I mean, I get it, companies have policies and all, but unpaid leave? I can't afford that. So I just told him I'd stick around and keep working. The sentiment was appreciated, but I need a paycheck, you know? It's not like taking a few weeks off unpaid is an option for me, but the burnout is real. And it's like I'm just dragging myself through each day. Second, my so-called friends, they still haven't apologized. Not a word. They're all still siding with her, the one who pushed me into that mess. It's funny how they acted like it was all just a good time, but when it came to facing the fallout, they all just disappeared. So, I think that's it. I'm done. I'm cutting them off for good. It's sad, but it's probably for the best. I'll be honest, I've been slipping. I've been drinking again. I know, it feels like everything I've worked so hard to overcome is just crumbling. It's embarrassing. I'm spiraling back into that dark place, and I hate it. It's like everything fell apart, and instead of holding it together, I'm watching it all burn. My husband doesn't want me anymore. My friends are gone, and I'm here, numbing myself in the worst way possible. I feel so empty, I guess. Numb, really. My best friend, she's trying. She's been checking in, keeping me company when she can. But there's only so much she can do, you know? At the end of the day, this is something I have to deal with. No one can pull me out of this mess but me, but God, it's hard. Oh, right, I almost forgot. My best friend and I went back to the house the other day to pack up the last of my things. Honestly, I didn't take everything when he first kicked me out because, deep down, I thought he might call me back. You know, maybe we could work things out. But that didn't happen. So, we packed up the little bit I had left there. It was mostly just emotional support that I needed from her that day. And then he hit me with the big one. He wants a divorce. I knew it was coming, but hearing it still hit me like a ton of bricks. He didn't sugarcoat it. He just said it's what he wants. I get it, I guess. But it's still hard to accept. Part of me hopes he'll regret it, that maybe he'll realize we can fix this. But another part of me knows that I've already burned too many bridges. Anyway, that's it. I'm just trying to exist. Update. Hey Reddit, thanks for all the advice and support. Some of you suggested things like couples counseling and reaching out to mutual friends and family to help smooth things over. But honestly, I think it's too late for any of that. I've begged my husband so many times to consider couples counseling, even sent him message after message, trying to explain everything, that I was drunk, that I didn't mean for any of it to happen. But he's just not interested. He's completely checked out, set on leaving, and nothing I say seems to change that. And yeah, a lot of you mentioned my drinking. You have no idea how much I appreciate it. I've been trying, I swear, but it feels impossible. I've relapsed so many times, and each time it hits me harder how disappointed I am in myself. Last night was a mess. I only remember starting with one bottle before blacking out. Who knows how much more I drank after that. Thankfully, I was at home alone, so nothing too disastrous happened. But still, my best friend came back from her late shift and found me like that. She was pissed, rightfully so. We ended up screaming at each other, and I just couldn't take it, so I left. So I'm sitting at the park now, trying to cool off and process everything while writing this. But here's where it gets worse. My husband told everyone what happened before I had the chance to even speak. My phone blew up with messages. His family, who never liked me much anyway, took this as their moment to pile on. I got called every name in the book, insults flying at me about how they always knew I wasn't right for him, and how they're not surprised because I'm an alcoholic and worthless. I couldn't even handle it. I asked him to get them to stop, and eventually the messages slowed down. But still, the damage was done. My own family's furious at me too. They're mad, not only because of what I did, but also because I didn't come to them first. Instead, I went to my best friend. Well, there's a reason for that. I've always been closer to her than my actual family. Now, they're all pretending to care, sending me fake reassurances that they're here for me. But it's too little, too late. It feels like everything's crumbling around me. And our mutual friends? Yeah, they're shocked, of course. A lot of them have already picked his side. I'm not even surprised at this point, but it hurts more than I thought it would. I just feel so isolated. Right now, I've muted my phone because I can't deal with the bombardment of calls and messages. I'm not ready to explain myself to anyone, and honestly, I don't think I want to. So, that's it. That's the mess I'm in. I don't know where to go from here or how to even begin fixing this. But for now, I just need to breathe and figure out what to do next. Update. Hey Reddit, I got served today, so I guess this is a mini update. Honestly, I feel surprisingly numb. My best friend, who has been by my side through everything, was worried sick because she said I haven't shown the kind of reaction she expected. She thinks I'm just bottling it all up, and that I would do something drastic once she leaves for work. She actually called in sick today because of me. She said she couldn't bear the thought of leaving me alone. I was kind of surprised when she told me, but I'm also really touched by it. I know she has her own life and responsibilities, but the fact that she dropped everything to be with me just so I wouldn't feel alone, it means the world. She didn't even make a big deal about it. She just grabbed us some coffee, grabbed my arm, and said, "We're getting out of here. You need some fresh air." We spent the day doing all sorts of random things to get my mind off everything, grabbing lunch at my favorite cafe, window shopping, even hitting up an arcade like we were teenagers again. She's been such an amazing friend, and I honestly don't even know how to begin repaying her. I feel like I owe her so much at this point. Of course, after she went to bed, I broke down. I didn't want to cry in front of her. She's already done so much, and the last thing I want is for her to feel like she needs to do more. She's practically carried me through this whole mess. And to be honest, she's been more of a family to me than my actual family has been through this entire ordeal. It's funny how life works, you know? You think your blood relatives will be there when things fall apart, but sometimes it's the people you find along the way who become your real family. She's definitely my found family now. I'm so grateful for her, but at the same time, I feel guilty because I can't shake the feeling that I should be handling all of this on my own. But here I am, crying silently into my pillow while I make this update, and she's in the next room, sound asleep, completely unaware. I guess that's what it's like when you hit rock bottom. You feel like you're a burden to the people who love you, even when they're doing everything in their power to help you through it. I don't even know where to go from here. Update. Hey Reddit, it's me. Sorry for the radio silence. I wanted to be done with everything before I made this final update because, honestly, Reddit was becoming very toxic for me. The negativity and harsh comments were hard to deal with, and I just needed to step away. I apologize for disappearing like that, but I had to focus on myself. In addition to everything going on, I've been attending AA meetings again for my alcoholism. Relapsing was a real fear for me, especially with all the stress, and I realized I needed to prioritize my recovery. So yeah, that was another reason I deleted Reddit for a while. I needed space to heal. Now, on to the update. First of all, the divorce has been finalized. I guess that's the big news. It was pretty cut and dry, which is such a heartbreaking phrase to use for something that was so emotionally painful to me. But legally, that's how it went. We didn't have any assets to split because all of my husband's assets were premarital. The house was his, the savings were his, everything was his. We also didn't have any kids, so there was no child support to factor in. And in my state, you have to have been married for about 10 years or more to qualify for alimony or spousal support. Since we didn't meet that threshold, I didn't qualify for anything in terms of financial support. So, yeah, it was quick, painfully quick, as there was really nothing to fight over. It feels surreal to say it's over, just like that. Something that consumed so many years of my life ended in a courtroom in less than an hour. I'm still processing all of it, honestly. My friend, my absolute rock, literally took time off work to be with me during this whole process. She knew how much the divorce was affecting me, and I don't know what I would have done without her. She opened her home to me without hesitation, and I'm still staying with her for now. I've started contributing to the rent and groceries because I want to at least try to pull my weight. But honestly, I don't know how I'll ever repay her for everything she's done. She's been there for me through the worst moments of my life, and it feels like I'll never be able to show her how much that means to me. As for my job, yeah, I'm still stuck at the same shitty place. It's soul-sucking, but at least it's a paycheck. And right now I can't afford to be picky. I keep hoping something better comes along, but the job market's been brutal. I've been trying to stay positive, but it's hard. The feeling of being stuck, especially after everything else I've gone through, can get overwhelming. But I'm taking it day by day. That's all I can do right now, one step at a time. In terms of my mental health, I'm hanging in there. Some days are better than others, and I'm learning to give myself grace. Going back to AA has been a huge help. It's grounding me again, reminding me of why I need to stay sober even when everything else feels like it's falling apart. There are moments where I just want to crawl into a hole and not deal with any of it, but I keep showing up to those meetings, and I'm trying to stay accountable. It's not easy, but it's necessary. So that's where things stand. I wish I had a more hopeful or uplifting update, but I guess this is just the reality of the situation. Life doesn't wrap up neatly with a happy ending, and sometimes it's just about surviving the storm. I'm still here, still fighting through it, and I guess that's something. Thanks for listening, and to those who sent me kind messages when I first posted. It meant more than you know.